I want to take a second, welcome Brian Costello in. Brian, how's it going, brother? We appreciate the time you're giving us. What's going on? You must be one busy guy.
Yeah, it's been some week.
Hey, Brian, what's
It's never dull.
What's going on, man?
What's happened?
So if anybody wants
Thanks
to
for
come
stopping
up
in, Brian.
and talk with Brian, we have him for a limited period of time, I'm sure. Brian, one question I got for you.
Yep.
When you're in these press conferences and you're reading Zach's body language, we were talking about it a little bit earlier today. He almost, we obviously know he didn't take accountability for what happened with Sunday. And even when you hear guys like Quinn Williams and they're like, well, no, he didn't address the team. But it took all the way until Wednesday for Zach to come out and address the team. So how sincere is him taking accountability for not only his actions on the field, but what he said post-game on Sunday?
I thought he was sincere today. And just like the way the week is constructed, right? Monday, they're really reviewing film and making corrections and that kind of thing. I suppose he could have done it Monday, but I don't think it's a big deal. Then Tuesday, there's nothing, right? If they're in the building, they're just getting medical treatment. There's no team activities. And then Wednesday is the first time they're really together for the team meeting, that to sort of begin the Bears week. So I don't think it was a big deal that he waited to do it. It sounds like, too, he started talking to guys individually Sunday night. And, once he said he got a text from his father that said, like, do you realize what you said? And I don't think he did realize it until he watched it back, and then he realized what he did. So I think he was talking to guys individually. I thought he was sincere today. He seemed humbled. I think this has to have been a pretty rough couple of days for him, and losing his job. This is the first real bit of major adversities he's hit as an NFL quarterback outside of injuries. And, it's going to be interesting to see how he responds.
Yeah, I appreciate that response. I wonder, do you really believe that they told, supposedly they told Mike White yesterday that he was going to be the starting quarterback, and we're finding this out today, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah. Typically, they would make the decision they made the decision on Tuesday. They have to start game planning, and I think the game plan is probably different, depending on who the quarterback was. So, I think once Saleh opened the door to this, he knew what he was doing, and they probably let all the quarterbacks know yesterday. I don't think Zach was asked exactly when he found out, and then they told the rest of the team this morning in the team meeting. But yeah, it's not unusual for the decision to be made on Tuesday, because that's really the game planning day. And I'm sure they wanted Mike White to know to start, so he could start preparing for the game.
I appreciate that. Let's get to some of the hands. Go ahead, Joe.
Hey, what's up? What's up, Brian? Joe and Clark.
Joe.
What's going on? Thanks I really appreciate coming in.
Yep.
Yeah, look. And I was just talking to Joe B. He's, how Joe loves Mike White. He's like, well, we never gave him a chance. Give him so now he's got his chance. I mean, I was just saying before, last year people forget, after that Bengal game, he had that great first quarter against the Colts.
Yep.
When he hurt his arm in that Colt game. I think he missed the following week and then came back the week after that against Buffalo. He probably wasn't 100%, Brian. He wasn't going to give up that shot to be a starting quarterback, and he probably played with a bad arm. Maybe his elbow, you know what I'm saying? Maybe that's why he threw 4 picks. But I mean, I'd like to give him a fair chance with a much better roster now, right, than he had last year. I mean, going for these last 7 games. And my thing is this: let me ask you a question: is it possible that we might have seen the last time Zach Wilson takes a snap under center for the Jets? I mean, is that possible? You think, or no?
Yeah. So the first part with White, I did think, it was limited chance last year. He may have been injured against Buffalo still. I don't think he missed a game, Joe. I'm trying to remember. I think it was Indianapolis.
I think the following week after the Colt game, I thought he missed because they played Thursday night.
It was a Thursday night game. I think the next week was Buffalo. Then the next week was Miami, and they went to Flacco against Miami. That's right. Yeah, that was really just a coaching decision. And then Mike White got COVID. Right. So
yes,
then he basically was like, and he had COVID longer than anyone I've known had COVID. He was gone for a long time with COVID. So it really wasn't. And they obviously wanted to get Zach back in there last year's rookie year. So yeah, I don't think, the thing is, I don't think White, he didn't have a great offseason to me, like the spring and the summer. He didn't really jump to me. So, that's why when Wilson went down, it was pretty obvious Flacco was going to be the guy, because Flacco, I thought, outplayed him in training camp. But what Robert Sala said a few weeks ago when they made the switch at number 2. You don't really know what Mike White is, so yeah, this is a chance to find out. He's going to get a chance to play, and he obviously played out of his mind against the Bengals last year, and then that first I think was the 2 drives against the Colts. He looked pretty good before he went out. So yeah, and the thing about Buffalo, they have a tremendous defense, right? So they're going to make a lot of quarterbacks look bad. In terms of Zach, I doubt this is the last time we'll ever see him. Is it possible? Yes, under center for the Jets. But I've been around long enough to remember, Mark Sanchez gets benched in 2012 for Greg McElroy. Greg McElroy goes out there and gets sacked 12 times by the Chargers, and that ends up with a concussion. And we thought that was the last we'd ever see of Sanchez. He starts the last game in Buffalo. Ryan Fitzpatrick gets benched in 2016 for Bryce Petty. Petty gets hurt against the Patriots, and Fitzpatrick starts the last game against Buffalo. So, there's 7 games left. There's a ton of time left in the season. You don't know if there's going to be injuries. You don't, and what Salah said today, they clearly have it in the back of their mind that they'd like to see Zach again this year. To me, obviously that would mean White didn't play well if we see Zach again in that regard, because I think they're going to stick with White, obviously ride him as long as they can. So I doubt this is the last time we've ever seen Zach Wilson under center. And remember, too, he has 2 years left on his contract. So he may not be the starter next year, but I think he'll be here. And stuff happens, as you guys know. Stuff happens with Jets quarterbacks. We're now, we were saying today, it's crazy. These 3 quarterbacks have all been the number 3 quarterback at some time healthy this year. That's a pretty rare thing to happen. They've all been the 3rd string inactive while being healthy. So wild things happen with Jets quarterbacks.
Do you find it odd that he's inactive for the game, though? I mean,
I don't. Once they made this decision that he wasn't starting, I thought they would do this. I think the Eagles did this with Carson Wentz. There's no point in having him as the backup. He needs to just have a break right now, clear his head, just kind of. And I thought, Robert said hit the reset button and being the backup. That would not be a good situation for him if he had to come into the game on Sunday. I think he needs a little bit of time here. I expect he'll probably be the backup. In a few weeks, they'll make a move, but I think give him a couple weeks to clear his head and not have to worry about that.
Brian, we saw last year, and I'll get to Paul right after this. Last year, what bringing in John Beck did for him, I almost feel like when they say reset, get back to the fundamentals. We see his arm angle dropping, his footwork is all out of place. So, do you think there's a chance that they tell him, listen, just go work with him for a week, get your head on straight, and come back and be ready?
No, I don't think so. I mean, they have people that are getting paid a lot of money. That's their job there, right? And it was I thought that was a weird thing last year when they brought him back. So I think this is going to be on Rob Calabrese and Mike LaFleur to work with him, and it's going to be stuff that's done after practice. You can't really do this during practice in November and December. They're preparing for games. But I'm sure you guys all know they have this thing called flight school that they do after practice, where that was where AVT worked on playing tackle, and they have there's a lot of guys on the roster that are developmental players on the practice squad and rookies and that don't play that much, and they do that work. And Zach's going to be with them now and trying the footwork. LaFleur mentioned, LaFleur said the lower half, so clearly the footwork is what they're worried about. And you watch the New England game; he's throwing off his back foot a ton. He's just not getting his feet set. He was kind of throwing from an open stance a lot. I thought the 2 throws that I remember where I thought he made nice throws were the one Mims dropped across the middle, and he had a nice throw to Elijah Moore. His first catch was a nice deep out. So, but for the most part, he was just so messed up on Sunday. And I have noticed he's sidearming the ball a ton. And then when he did that Sunday in the wind, the ball was taken off on him, and there was a few throws that sailed on him because he did that. I thought so. Yeah, I think this is just clear your head. And they'll work with him, in the building. I don't expect John Beck to be back. Maybe John Beck pays him a little bit visit on the side, and they do some stuff. But I don't think the Jets would be bringing him in.
I appreciate that. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, well, Brian is probably the oldest guy here. I want to let you know I've enjoyed your work over the 20 years at the Post. I've read it.
Thank you.
I do enjoy it a great deal. Today, I wanted to ask you your impression of something because Twitter takes a life of its own, and a lot of the people were telling me I took out of context something that you reported, that everyone reported, and what Robert Saleh said about his conversation with Wilson, where he said, Wilson
Why me?
said, "Why me?
Yeah.
I want to play." And not by the way, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I probably would have said the same thing. But
Yeah.
Robert Saleh, and you know him. I only see him on television. He strikes me as a smart and deliberate man, and he's not going to say something without thinking about it. And I thought he was just regurgitating the conversation. I mean, I don't think it was that big a deal, but oh my God, you people were attacked. Oh, the right.
I didn't think
you people were hung at the stake all day. You took it out of context. That's not what he said.
Yeah,
What was your impression? What do you
so
think?
he said it, right? And I'm careful tweeting live. Like, it's very hard to listen to someone and tweet. Like, it's hard and to get the right. I thought what he said it, but I don't think he was quoting Zach. I think what he meant was he was doing the generic. Any player would have this reaction when they got benched. They'd say, "Why me?" That was what he was saying. I don't think Zach actually said those words. I think he was just saying, Zach wasn't happy, which he shouldn't be. No, nobody should be happy when they're losing their starting job. So
okay, I was
curious. I didn't think he was quoting him. And I agree. Like, Saleh is smart, he's deliberate, but Saleh sometimes in press conferences he does sometimes say things where there was a couple today. There was that one, and then when he said they don't hate him, they're annoyed they don't hate him. I'm like, well, that's pretty strong. You're not saying they don't dislike him. You're saying they don't hate him. Like, that one was weird to me. So there was a couple today that kind of struck me as Saleh maybe was. Sometimes I know people inside the Jets feel like Saleh sometimes says a little too much, and I think it's because he's a nice guy. I think he's trying to help us do our jobs a lot of times and trying to give us like good answers and give a full picture. But that one to me was him just kind of saying, this is what, kind of paraphrasing Zach, not quoting him.
Okay, you were there. I was just curious because I took it the other way, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I thought it was in his, he was thinking in his mind, he was sort of thinking about the conversation. He just said what he recalled. But, and I understand.
I mean, why me would be a weird thing to say, right? Like, I think that'd be a weird, like,
I don't know.
And like, I think, I mean, why me would be weird. Like, I think he was just kind of saying, like, woe is me, and like, and Zach, to his credit, when he talked to us, said, like, he gets it. He understands he's not playing well. So he knows why they're making this move. And I think after Monday, Zach had to feel like this was coming, when Saleh opened the door.
Yeah, well, that's what we got. Hope for the best. It's going to be an interesting run down the stretch here. If Wilson has to come back because White failed, and we'll see.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be a straight line. It never is.
Well, thank you anyway. Again,
no problem.
Reporting.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Brian. Go ahead, Petey, and then we'll go JoJo and Terrence.
Hey, Brian, how are you?
Hey, Pete, how are you?
Good, man. Good. Two quick questions. One, can you beat Flacco in speed training?
I might be able to take Flacco. I will say this, Pete. I do think I could throw for 12 yards if you gave me a half of football. I don't know. I don't know. I was debating that with someone the other day. I'm like, you think if you got a full half of football, you could throw for 12 yards?
Oh gosh, Brian. Hey, at least we can carry on a joke for over 10 years. That's still funny. So, Brian, my question is, and thanks for your work. So, do you think Elijah Moore was upset with Wilson or LaFleur or both? And I think he's going to actually benefit out of this now because White is pretty decent in the short passing game.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Elijah Moore was mad at the world. Honestly, I think it was Zach. I think it was LaFleur. I think it was Saleh. I think it was everybody that he was upset with. And I do think this helps him. I think this helps Michael Carter. Like, you remember how good Michael Carter was in that Bengals game. Yeah, like this is what White is a lot better at than Zach is, the short passing game and taking the layups and doing the check downs. Like, that's what he did against the Bengals. Like, it was amazing. He threw for 405 yards, and they were all like these 10-yard passes. So there was no deep balls in that game. So, yeah, I think that will help them. One thing with Elijah Moore, and I don't know how much everyone noticed this, but so after the punt return Sunday, they kick off, and Elijah Moore runs out of bounds on the kickoff. And so I was asking Brent Boyer about that today, and Boyer, I don't think he wanted to throw the guy under the bus, but he basically said he was not happy with that. And it showed me, it was kind of like, what the heck were you thinking? Because they it's a 1 in a million chance at the kickoff with 5 seconds left, but you got to run like a Stanford band play. There was, and then with that win, you're not throwing a Hail Mary even. So, I just question sometimes where Elijah Moore's head is at, and if that's holding him back a little bit in terms of what's going on with the offense.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
Thanks, that Brian. Go ahead, JoJo.
Hey, Brian, what's up? This is JoJo, not in Clark. Hey, just real quick, do you believe in this Calabrese guy with teaching Wilson and if he does come back?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. I don't not believe it. Like I haven't seen it. He's young. I mean, this was one of the dangers of Robert Saleh's staff. When you looked at it last year, there were so many guys doing this for the first time. He obviously had first-time offensive coordinator with LaFleur. Ulbrich had done it in Atlanta on an interim basis, and then I think there was 5 position coaches who were doing it for the first time. And when you have a young team, there's a lot of teaching that needs to go on. So I think this is a big test for Calabrese. I think it's a big test for LaFleur to see can they get Zach going, but like they haven't, right? They haven't done the job, and I think. I talked to Eric Mangini yesterday, and he said, like, if you're in that building right now, you're saying, okay, what is Zach better at than he was, or where has he improved? And there's like nothing to point to. He's doing nothing better right now that he did last year. His completion percentage is exactly the same. So, yeah, I think it's fair to question Calabrese. Look, their plan got completely messed up with the tragedy with Greg Knapp. They were going to have Greg Knapp is kind of that older voice, and Calabrese learning, and it got completely screwed up with the tragedy with Greg Knapp. So, yeah, I think this is. I think we're about to find out some stuff about Calabrese and LaFleur to see if they can help this guy through this.
Thanks for that, Brian. Go ahead, Terrence.
Yeah, Ray and Pat, thanks, and Brian, always good to hear from you. Hey, listen to the pod on the way home. Thanks for the kiss of death on picking the Jets.
I wasn't sure. I'm not sure if you guys are going to be happy I picked them or mad at me.
But that's just a joke. But
yeah.
two quick hits. I think you mentioned it in the pod a little bit. But can you the fact that Mike White, they kind of raised eyebrows when Salah about 4 weeks ago mentioned that he was being elevated to number 2. And the only thing that now that it makes sense now, but one of the reasons we were thinking was that had Zach faltered, that they wanted to see what they had in Mike White. And then the second quick one is considering what they've been asking Zach to do the last couple of games. Do you just think Mike White fits that role as more of a game manager or somebody that can take what's given to him, like in the short passing game, and let people like Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, basically, catch a pass and break a tackle and run with it? Because that just seems to me to contradict why they drafted Zach Wilson at number 2. But considering where the defense is right now, that might be all that they want out of the quarterback right now to get to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. I think a few weeks ago when they made this move, they made it with this in mind that if they had to make a move, they weren't going to go to Joe Flacco. They were going to go to Mike White. So let's get him as a second team. So he'd be already active on game days. It's a little bit of a different mentality, right? You're one snap away, and you're preparing a little differently. So I think they did. I don't think they were anticipating necessarily benching Zach, but if he got hurt or if they had to, if it didn't go well, they would have to bench him. They'd want to go to Mike White. I do think he's going to fit what they're looking for right now. I agree with you. I think what they want right now is competent quarterback play. They don't need you to be a superstar. They need you to be a complimentary player. Sort of what Zach did against Buffalo, right? Keep the offense moving, keep them out of 3rd and long, just kind of keep everything on schedule. And he did that against Buffalo, but he didn't do it against New England. So I do think White fits that a little bit better. I think he, from what we saw last year, he's better with checkdowns, better with short passes. I think White can have a lot of success against the Chicago Bears. I think that it's going to be Buffalo's looming in a few weeks. It's going to be tough for any quarterback against that. But, I go back to Saleh in June, made a comment that we don't need Zach Wilson to be Tom Brady. And that completely floored me that he would say that. you drafted him number 2 overall. Of course, you want him to be Tom Brady. You want him to be the greatest quarterback who ever lived. If you're taking him number 2, but they kind of set this year up as like they were, they were going to play defense, run the ball. I think they figured that out after in October that they went back to that, playing defense, run the ball, and just have the quarterback not turn the ball over. So I think that's what they're going to be asking of White too. The problem right now is the running game is not good either, right? That's scuffling too. This team really misses Breece Hall. The offensive line's a little banged up. So, I know all the focus was on Zach on Sunday, but the running game was atrocious. And maybe that's partly because of Zach and because they feel like they had to respect the passing game. And I think that was the second half, but even the first half, it wasn't going. So, Mike White's going to need some help. They're going to have to figure out a way to get this running game going a little bit too.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Thanks. Brian, let's be honest. If Zach says the right things after the press conference on Sunday, he's probably starting on Sunday against the Bears. Am I right or wrong? If he says,
I don't know.
The defense down,
I don't know.
Yes, I let the defense. If he gave you a Josh Allen contrition there, where he was
contrite, I think that hurt him, but I think the 77 yards hurt him way worse. I think when they turned on that film, because this has been coming, right? Like even feeling, when they were winning, you were like, oh, like they're winning around Zach. And some people say in spite of him. I felt like it was around him because he wasn't like he was killing them. He just wasn't doing much to contribute. I mean, he has 4 touchdown passes in 7 games. So, I feel like, they knew in October, like, this guy's got to pick it up. We need a little bit better play. And then the bottom just fell out Sunday. He did not help himself after the game. And I do think Saleh felt like there was an aspect of this of like, I better do something or I'm going to lose the other 52 guys in the room. But I think the bigger part of that was, rather than the comment, was we preach that you're going to play the best players. Well, the quarterback is not the best player right now to help us win games. You better make a change. So I think the post game comments contributed it, but I really think the main factor was the on field product.
And do you feel that Woody got involved? Like yesterday, when he's in meetings there for a couple of, you think Woody got involved and put his 2 cents in this and basically said, because for some reason I got a feeling that Saleh, if it was up to him solely, he would have started Zach on Sunday. That's just a gut I have.
I have no reporting that indicates that, and the delay on Monday was not related to this. There's a personal issue going on with someone on the coaching staff, and they were dealing with that. I'm sure there was tons of meetings Monday. He always meets with Woody. I'm sure Woody did put his 2 cents in, but I don't think this was generated by Woody. I think this was Saleh figured it out Sunday night that, like, okay, I better consider this at least. And I'm sure he talked to everybody involved. I was a little surprised. I thought they would give him a short leash Sunday. I thought they'd put him out against the Bears, play the first half. If he struggled, then replace him at halftime. I felt like that was kind of the next step in this. I feel like they sort of skipped a step, right? They went right from, we're not considering a change to making a change. Usually there's a little period in between. So, but I don't think this is Woody so much. I really do believe this was Saleh.
One more thing on this, Brian. And what really bothered me in that game was that last drive that the Jets had, where they had about 2 minutes and 2:43 left. I think they went first, second down. They I think incomplete pass. Then third down, he gets sacked, but they got bailed out by the illegal contact by New England. Yeah. So they got run back first down. And on first down, they got 8 yards, I believe, on the run by Robinson. So now there's about a minute 50 left. And rather than get up
less than that, it was less than that, Joe. They took over with less than 2 minutes. It was like 1:56 left, something like that.
Okay, but I mean, I remember after that run, rather than get up to the line and let's get a rhythm going. Let's try to drive the good 30 yards and kick a field goal and win the game. They just let the clock run down.
Yeah, let the clock run. Yeah. I don't know what they were doing on that drive, to be honest. And I asked.
They were playing for overtime. It seemed like that's what they wanted.
Yeah, it did. And it seemed like it seemed like they were afraid to give the Patriots the ball back, which I don't understand. I understood it for 20 years, right? When number 12 was back there, sure. You never wanted to give him the ball back. But I didn't really understand with Mac Jones. I don't know what they were that worried about with that. So yeah, and then the third and 1 play where he throws to Michael Carter is a killer. I asked LaFleur about that today, and he went through that. Basically, Zach shouldn't have thrown it there. he wanted him to throw it.
I mean, if they run the ball, the clock probably runs down, and what's his face probably just lets it run down and play for overtime, even Belichick.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
it could. Yeah. I didn't understand that end of game sequence so much of what they were doing, but this is we've seen it. I'm trying to remember the other game where we've seen them do this now before, where they're very adamant about not giving the ball back to the other team, and they take their time and run the clock down. They did it at the end of a half. I can't remember who it was against, and it struck me as odd.
Even in the Bills game, Brian, they did. They remember they got the ball down to the 4 or 5 yard line, and eventually they ran it. But they let that clock run way down, and then they kicked the field goal.
Yeah.
And basically gained 27 seconds. So it worked there. So
it worked. Yeah, it's a different philosophy of football than I'm used to watching. Like when I was growing up, it was you hurried up and you tried to score.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I think the analytics community is more into minimize the other team's possessions, and I think that factors into it because he has this guy in his ear, Smash, that's telling him that stuff.
Gotcha.
So that I do agree that was a little weird.
Thanks.
Go ahead. Thanks for that, Brian. Go ahead, Sean.
Hey, Brian. Got 2 questions. First one is, how long do you envision, unless you have some inside knowledge, how long do you envision Zach being inactive? Are they playing it week to week, or is he on timeout for stretch of games?
Yeah, no, I think it's probably week to week right now. They probably have something in mind. To me, he's probably inactive for probably 3 games. He's probably inactive for, I would think, and then maybe two, maybe 3, and then they bring him back for the Detroit game as active. I think there's a little bit of a process here to sort of rebuild his mechanics and work with him. I would think that would take at least 2 or 3 weeks, but I don't think they know exactly right now. I think they are really going to just take this kind of week to week.
And second, as far as Mike White, what do you feel he has to do? What is a game in which they'll have to revisit this, the depth chart situation with him and Zach Wilson? Is it they want him to just be competent, or let's say he runs off 4 or 5 games? Then obviously, Salah said, we hope to play him again this year. But if Mike White is winning, that's not going to happen.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, I think Salah was just I don't think Salah wants to lose Zach Wilson mentally, so they're saying, oh, he's going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if Mike White's winning, you can't move away from it. I think if they fall out of playoff contention, or if White is just terrible, then which would probably lead to the other. Then you'd see Zach Wilson again. But I don't think it's going to happen until that till they see that for a few games. I can't see him being back before late December.
Oh, and I have to add, there's no talk of John Beck coming back, is it?
I haven't heard anything. Yeah, someone asked earlier about Beck. I've not heard that. I know he occasionally visits New Jersey and sees Zach, and so they might. I don't think the organization is going to bring him back. Does he come and do some work on the side with him? Maybe. I gotta think Zach's probably trying to think of everything he can do right now, but I don't think that would be a Jets move. That would be more a Zach move.
All right, thanks, Brian. Thanks, Rick.
Yep.
Yeah, anytime. Brian, we've always heard about this in the past that 80, 90% of what a quarterback is just in practice, and the other 10 to 20% on the field. Shouldn't they know by now what they have in White? I feel like the expectations by Jet fans, we're going to unpack the next Kurt Warner, is a little out there for me, because I feel like you should know.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I do think there's something to be said for playing in a game versus practice, and there's some guys who are gamers. They're just much better in games than they are in practices. But yeah, I think they have a pretty good idea of who Mike White is. And remember, Douglas even predates this coaching staff. Mike White was here in 2020, so he's seen even more of him. And training camp is big. Training camp, he got a lot of reps. He got a lot of, the preseason. They have all that data too. So, yeah, I don't think they're expecting to uncover the next gem here. I think they just want some competent quarterback play, and he can't be any worse than what Zach was on Sunday. I got time for a couple more, and then I got to run.
Sure, we'll make it really quick. 2 people that haven't spoken yet. We'll get to Nomadic and then Ground and Punt.
Okay.
Hey, fellas, thanks so much, Brian, for your time. Really appreciate it. a lot of my thunder's already been stolen by everybody else that went before me because we're all thinking the same things.
Yeah.
So, two questions. One, the last time you came on and we spoke, I had asked you if you thought maybe there was some eye rolling on Zach's part, having such a young and experienced OC that had never brought a quarterback along. Do you think that, Ground and Punt earlier today had spoken about, him not taking to the coaching? Do you think that there might be a little bit of that going on with this overconfidence and arm strength?
I think it might be there's some overconfidence there. I don't necessarily think it's directed at LaFleur. I've never sensed any difficulty between them. I think he respects the coaching. I think he's a very confident guy and, overconfident to a degree. You don't it's hard to, when you're around these guys, right? Like they got to the NFL because they're wired differently, right? Like they have to believe in themselves, especially at that position. You have to believe you're better than everyone to get there. And so, especially at 23, it's hard to humble yourself. So I think this sort of humbled him a little bit. I thought he was different today, but I don't think he's eye rolling at LaFleur necessarily. I think he's trying to take the coaching. Yeah, I just think he's struggling. I think he looks like a guy who's just struggling to process everything. And then physically, he's all out of whack now, too.
What can he do in 3 weeks? Obviously, if White's winning, they're going to keep throwing White out there. What could he do in the next 3 weeks that would, warrant them saying, all right, if White's failing, we're going to throw him in over Flacco? Meaning, is Flacco really going to be the next guy? If in your opinion, would Flacco be the next guy in some point in the next month?
The only thing, it depends on where they are in terms of the playoffs, right? Like if they're still alive, yeah, maybe then Flacco comes in. But I think if White really stumbles and you're having this conversation, they've probably fallen out of playoff contention. They probably lost a number of games and fallen out, and then I think it goes back to all right, we got to get Zach back out there. There's big decisions to be made this offseason. Let's see a little more of him. And I do think he could make changes in 3 weeks, right? Like he's it's like any golfers out there. He's tinkering with his golf swing right now. And he's done it. He knows what it looks like. I think this is a good chance for him to clear his head and calm down a little bit. And just, he can focus on these mechanics. He doesn't have to worry about the Bears this week, right? Like I think he doesn't have to study 12 hours of Bears film right now. He can just go out there and throw and work on his footwork. So I do think there is stuff he can do in the next 3 weeks to kind of get himself back on track.
Right on. Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, last one for you, Brian. Once again, thanks so much for your time. Ground and Punt, go ahead, brother. Finish it off.
Hey, Brian. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you giving us your time. And just want to wish you and your family to have a nice Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Enjoy some time with your family. So Nomadic brought up some stuff that I've been talking about with regards to, again, just feeling like Zach's a little bit overconfident in his arm and seems to abandon the mechanics a little bit too much. And a lot of Jet fans kind of feel like, why aren't the coaches telling him to do this? Why aren't the coaches telling him to do that? And so kind of maybe feels like, maybe, but you already answered that part of it. I guess this is a statement where they kind of feel like they're in win now mode. Do you think it's a hybrid of things where they're trying to reset Zach, but also keep the window of winning open and trying to make the most they can out of the season?
Yeah, no, I definitely I wrote this a few weeks ago. I think after the first Patriots game, in their minds, this season was a building year for everyone. It was a growing year. They were young. They had just drafted all these rookies. And I think they were pointing at 2023 as the year when they could contend. And all of a sudden, they're better than they thought they were going to be. Like their record is better than they thought. And the defense came along a lot faster. Sauce Gardner does not look like a rookie. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson didn't play like rookies. Everything kind of got accelerated except one position, right? And he was still kind of back. So I do think there's a sense here of they've got a shot. And, I don't have to tell Jets fans how rare these chances are with the playoffs. And I always go back like that after that game in 2015 in Buffalo when they lost. I talked to McCagnon a few weeks later. I said, "You have no idea how big that loss was. Like not making the play. Like if you just made the playoffs, even if you lost, you have that. You have that in your in your pocket. You made the playoffs. So like Saleh knows that. What he knows what making the playoffs would mean for his job security, for him with the Jets, for him selling his program. Like it'd be big. So he owes it to those guys to go for it. And I think that's what, this is what largely this was about. They feel like, Mike White's going to give them the best chance here at making a run at the playoffs. They got a tough schedule ahead. And the division's crazy right now with everybody at 2 games over 500. So yeah, I think that's what this is about. Is this window is here. They've got to take it. They can't blow this. They can't blow a chance at the playoffs in order to develop one player. And I give them credit for seeing that.
Brian, thank you so much for your time.
Right, guys.
Brian, thanks for getting back to me so fast too, bro. I appreciate
No problem.
it. Thank you. Thanks, buddy.
Have a good Thanksgiving, everyone.
You too, man.
Hope to have you back soon, brother.
All right, thanks.
All right, man. Thank you.